Some people just don't feel like they want to be burdened with having to feel like they have to participate at a certain level or being involved in a high octane culture. So if you're able to define it and they connect with you on that level, then they're going to come there. But if it's something they don't want, then they don't. I think it's a way of not even just recruiting more effectively in terms of getting a number of clients, but getting the right clients, because they're going to come to you because you're being real and authentic and they understand the experience ahead of time.
This is the Rebel HR Podcast, the podcast where we talk to HR innovators about all things people leadership. If you're looking for places to find about new ways to think about the world of work, this is the podcast for you. Please subscribe from your favorite podcast listening platform today and leave us a review. Rebel on, HR Rebels. All right, Rebel HR listeners, thanks for joining us this week. This one's going to be a fun one. We with us today have Kelly Keenan. He is a leading brand strategist, an agency owner, a sought-after speaker, and a leadership consultant. He's the founder and president of Brand Story Experts, and for the past 2 decades has helped hundreds of brands clarify their story to ignite their culture and their sales. He has a recently released book called Everyone is an Influencer, Building a Brand by Engaging the People Who Matter Most. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Extremely excited to have you here, and I can tell this is going to be a fun conversation just from our preliminary discussion here before I hit record. So first question I want to ask is, what got you into the people marketing space or the more holistic marketing space?
Yeah, so I had an agency. I started in marketing right out of college, and 24, I opened an agency and was in a traditional marketing agency for about 12, 13 years. And what I saw was really, it wasn't about the ideas and selling. It was, really success was happening through the channels that were coming out and using Facebook and YouTube and all those things to educate. I come from a family of educators, so I always went into education. So I was like, this is a great opportunity to use these channels to educate. And I ended up starting a new business called Brand Story Experts because it was about, really wanted to capitalize on that opportunity. And once I started doing that, helping people get their story straight, clarify who they are, and celebrate that story. Once we started doing that, what I noticed was it was really not just helping out with customers. It was really helping out more with the team and clarifying, best practices and being real about who the company was. So as a benefit, it was a big culture changer because it solidified who they were. And really everything, the experience got better for everyone. And that's how I got into the people business, because when you talk about celebrating the company, it's not fictional, it's real, and people can see it was real. So it was more meaningful. It affected the culture. It affected the way people hired, retention, everything. So that's kind of the shift, and I've really enjoyed it. It makes it a lot more meaningful, and our team loves it because you're having an impact on, so many aspects of the business, not just marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a really interesting approach, and I'm sure our listeners can agree with this, but one of the biggest challenges in HR is making that connection between the product or the service that you provide and connecting that to an employee and their experience and their engagement in the workplace. And, I've had a couple scenarios where, I've had people quit to go work for a company that they just thought seemed cooler, right? Yeah. Or just seemed like more attractive for some reason because it was a known employer or a known brand or something that they just perceived as maybe, just more fun. And so I think we can all reflect on those types of conversations or those types of experiences. So, I got to believe you've got some stories of organizations that you've helped and you've seen some impacts to prevent things like that.
Yeah, it's really, we always say there's 3 components to a story, and that's sort of the basis of our process, telling a complete, comprehensive story. because, people have different things that matter to them. You may think that it's the result. That's why people are always like, oh, it's not just pay that matters to people. Well, no shit. It's not just pay. It's, there's so many people that care about so much more than pay. It depends on people's experiences, their background. And so if it's, what we say is the attitude, drive, and direction. So the attitude is like the emotional people. And really, we want to make sure that we define who you are and how you connect in that way. Because some people, they've had bad experiences. They just want to, with bosses that didn't treat them with respect, or a company that didn't really feel lively. As you're saying, it wasn't fun. So that attitude is really important to them. Those are that listen to their heart people. They want to feel the connection and build trust emotionally. So that's the first side of it, is having that attitude defined. And the second kind of people is sort of the habits, systems, and processes people. They want to know, what to expect, what's going to happen, what their day is going to look like, how it's going to be, how they're going to get along with the team, what kind of culture do you have. So it's those habit, systems, and processes that are employed. We try to really detail those as a second part of the story, because people, they really care about operational mindset first. And that's just the way that they function. And then finally, it's the direction of the company. And that's where people can expect to head with this company. Where are they going? What are not just the results and the reputation, but what does the future hold? So that's the third part of any story that we do. So when you tell a story that includes all three of those components, and you celebrate it through social media, and you do it through films, and you do it in a way that's just, time after time, and it's real, and you can do that because it's, you don't need to write a script for these people. It's just celebrating it through content. You end up really allowing people to attach in the way that matters most to them. And, and that is how you hire people more effectively, because they're going to be able to see who you are. If you're a fun organization and somebody wants that, and you're real and authentic about celebrating that, they're going to come there. That's just the way it goes. And if you're some people don't like fun, they're introverts, and they want to know that they're just going to show up, and you ask them to do their job. Here's the expectations, and they get paid well. They're going to come there. But the fun person's probably not going to be there, and you probably don't want them there. So it's because they're not going to be happy. So, anyways, I think it's more about just finding out the right fit. Some people just don't feel like they want to be burdened with having to feel like they have to participate at a certain level, or being involved in a high octane culture. So if you're able to define it and they connect with you on that level, then they're going to come there. But if it's something they don't want, then they don't. And I think it's just it's a way of not even just recruiting more effectively, in terms of getting a number of clients, but getting the right clients, because they're going to come to you because you're being real and authentic, and they understand the experience ahead of time, So that's the big benefit there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think what's so interesting about that approach, and that the system that you've built around that it's about not only defining your, building your brand, but it's also about allowing people the opportunity to kind of self-select, right? Like, hey, I something resonates here. Like, and if you truly are authentic, that's going to make it a whole lot easier to make sure that you're getting people who are the right, fit for your organization, or are the right fit for, a consumer of whatever you're producing. So,
yeah. And it's not even, it's also just running the race that is right for you. It's everybody. A lot of times it's like a checklist when it comes to human resources of, we got to say we do this, and this. Oh, and I heard somebody else is talking about this. Oh, we got to do that too. And also we offer this. And what ends up happening is everybody's saying the same thing, and truly when you understand who you are and what differentiates you, and you can own that, you don't have to be everything. You just have to be who you are, because those are the things that how you're going to show up, and people are going to say, yeah, they are like that. And then other people are going to start talking about it, because when you understand who you are at your best and the most inspiring aspects of your business, those are the things that people are going to champion, and they're going to talk about too and reinforce. And that's how your brand gets bigger and bigger and separates itself from all these other people that are just talking about ordinary things that are just checklists that everybody has to have. Because after a certain point, you're just blending in with everyone else. So nobody can replicate your people and the experience if you truly understand, your people and what you're doing, and you take pride in that. So that's what our process is built to uncover. And that's why we're able to help differentiate people and celebrate that story and get people, most importantly, to get the team on board. Because every rollout meeting that I ever do with a team, I say to them, this is the reputation you've earned, we've uncovered. And, we want to celebrate this because you guys work too hard not to differentiate yourself. So you can get better team members to work shoulder to shoulder with you, so you can be more successful for your families. So let's celebrate this reputation you've earned, take pride in it. And as an agency, we're going to do our best to do that and take that content and make sure that people understand it. And we take a great deal of pride in that honor of being able to represent a company and a culture. So that's the mindset, man. I mean, it makes it fun for everybody. So.
Absolutely. And I think what's so interesting, and I want to talk a little bit about the book here, is the fact that, that your book is hitting on a couple really critical concepts. One of them being, people being influencers, which of course, that's kind of like, that's everybody's goal that's graduating from high school right now is, be a social media influencer, but also, building a brand by engaging, the people who matter most, i.e., your team, your key players. So as you thought about that, as you were getting ready for the book, I gotta believe that you learned some interesting insights. So what were some insights as you were writing this that really kind of surprised you?
We'll be back after a quick break.
And so used to having everything in front of them right away that we forget that innovation just takes time. I myself, I get frustrated too. Why? And this is being one of my best friends is, hey, I talk to you all the time. Hey, man, I'm frustrated in the fact that I can't seem to just get there in the next day. But that's just not how these things work, right? Innovation needs to be planned out. It needs to be very methodical. And then when it finally hits, that's when it seems like to everyone else that it sort of just came out of nowhere. But to you, the amount of dedication that it took over that time.
It's neat to see that concept, the influencer concept, it applies to everything, really, not just in people that you hire to represent your brand, but it hires in terms of the people that that are working in your company, and even the relationships that you have, sponsorships. I just talked with a client today, and they are an organization that really they've been around sponsoring community events, and one of the things, we're down in Florida, so they do fishing tournaments and that, and now they're going to sponsor this TV show that's about helping make fishing about family and helping disadvantaged kids go fishing, and it's really about trying to find the synergy between the sponsorship and why it matters to them, and celebrating that alignment. Because then that sponsorship becomes more than just being one of the 27 people that are on the web page that are putting their logo out there. When you can explain and make people understand how you're truly integrated with this influencer, then their influence becomes something more than just, hey, they can get me these numbers and this following. It's about shared vision and values, and being able to shine a light on that and educate people on it. It changes it. That's a true relationship. Those are the people that matter most. Those are the relationships that matter most. When you can help people through education understand why there's a true relationship there. And then, for example, your team members will see that sponsorship and say, that's right, we do that. And we have been doing it. And so it's real to them, and it means more to them. Same thing with the people that are out there in the community that have seen you back behind, sponsoring fishing is what I'm telling the guy. And people have seen you do it for the last 10 years. Now you're bringing something saying fishing's always been important to us. It's about family. And now this is something that's more meaningful. And this is why it matters to us and why we wanted to get behind it. So, it's understanding a way to make the most of relationships through authentic integration, where your vision and values match up and everything gets better. And I tell you, it makes things that seemingly are just, doing it just to do it because you have to, corporate responsibility to support the community and just doing it and signing a check, it makes it more valuable to everybody. So that's really the understanding of everyone's an influencer. It's making the experience better for everyone by just truly educating people on where that relationship exists, why the relationship matters, and that's been a big difference maker.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I think it's something that in my seat as an HR professional, a lot of times we get stuck with oh, here, you get to do the charitable contributions budget.
Yeah.
Right. You're HR. That's how HR is. It's like, oh, here, you're the person that has to, monitor the permit parking passes and all these random things. It's like, cause nobody else wants to. Right.
Right.
But I distinctly remember, your story reminded me of a time when I was working at a local manufacturer. And it was back in, this would have been 08, 09. Everybody was pinching every single dollar that they could. And so what's one of the first budgets to go away? Well, the charitable contributions budget got slashed, the local budget, right? It wasn't much to begin with, very, very, very small. But with those little dollars every year, what we were doing is we were sponsoring this local baseball team. And we're talking like $100 so that they could, get shirts and hats for the team, right? And then these kids could go out and play t-ball. And what I didn't realize, you're just kind of like, oh well, too bad, sorry about that. I guess we just can't do that anymore. But what the ripple effect of not sponsoring that team did is that we had so many employees that had kids on that team, that when we didn't sponsor it, it's like the people that were standing outside my office for this what seemed like a meager sponsorship were so frustrated. And for me, that was really eye-opening. It was like, oh wow, this really does matter. We should be pretty thoughtful about these types of things and kind of the impact of these types of things. But that those employees saw that as, we're supporting their kids.
Yeah.
We're supporting them learning teamwork. We're supporting them getting some work ethic. We're giving them something safe to do outside of school. And we were supportive of all those things. And it's something it's really easy to lose sight of when it's just a small little line item on the budget, right? But yeah, it matters. It matters a lot.
Well, and that is a tremendous example of how it's, I'm talking to you about a charity and how its vision and values and that's another way of looking at it. But the way that you just talked about is, really what that boiled down to is you're supporting the team members and their kids and their families. And you don't know that because you don't have an education of that. But for example, if you'd had social media posts about, hey, we support our team members, we support our team, we love seeing our kids, and you celebrate that, everybody knows that. Everybody's aware of it. And not only does it help the people that are making the decisions not cut the $100, it's more than that. It's really the education helps more people feel good about it, because it doesn't have to be their kids playing on that team. Their kids can play another sport and just say, hey, it's great that or not play any sport at all. And just to say, hey, they support us and it's meaningful. So just understanding who you are, understanding the relationships you have. And that's a tremendous example because I've seen, I had a company that they sponsored this basketball team that was basically like a local basketball team that competes and they wear the jerseys from the company and they've had 3 team members on that basketball team who are leaders in their company, and they put it on Facebook, and they win the championship, and they treat it like it's a big deal. And this is a company that has 600 team members, and they're sponsoring, they're talking about this, but it makes a big difference. And about 5 years later, they had another guy who races cars, and he put the company logo on the car, and they start celebrating that. That's one part of it. And those employees, they become influencers for them, because now not only they just very happy they're getting sponsored, but they're like, hey, these guys are backing us up. This is what they're doing, and it just spreads goodwill across the whole company. It becomes stories that you can celebrate and talk about. We're actually doing a film on that this year, so it's you can make the most of that content. So
I love that. It's awesome. And we're not sitting here saying, hey, you got to go sponsor a sports team, but I do think it is telling to be thoughtful about, okay, what do I support? What do my employees care about? But I think one of the things I want to start to dig into a little bit is, this isn't about invention. So walk us through your approach on, I love the way this is described. It's don't invent, reveal.
Yes. Yeah. So really our process every relationship we've done in 13 years we've been doing Brand Story Experts has begun with our process. And the first part of it is an impression analysis. And it's really, taking a look at the impressions that surround the company. So we get a list. We start with the internal list of team members, management, stakeholders, vendors, anybody who's close and internal has a perspective from that level. And let's just say it's 100 people. It could be 1,000 people, but if it's 100 people, then we triple that on people that are outside list. And that's going to be new customers, old customers, people that aren't working directly for the company or involved. So they'll have an impression, but it's not going to be the same, right? So we do 300 to 400 at that time, 3 or 4 times, because they're not going to respond at the same rate. And we want a nice even 360 impression analysis. So once we have that list, we send them, 120 attributes, ask them to choose the top 20 that best represent the brand, ask them to narrow that down to 10, and by selecting or deselecting the ones that they don't want to choose. And then the last one, the force ranking of saying, rank them in dominance, 1 being the most dominant, the 10 being the least. That force ranking really, there's a psychology behind it. It really causes them to say, look, I'm going to put these in order. 1, this is the most dominant thing that I see in this company, all the way down to 10. Positive and negative attributes. And really what we get is we do a reverse valuation, and we get a top 15 of where people visualize, the impression surrounding the brand. And when you see things at the top or see how attributes stack, we don't need to wonder whether or not you are seen that way. I mean, we're learning how people perceive you, and not just perceive you in a way that is, individual. It's everybody. It's employees, team members. These are the things that shine through unmistakably. So that's what we use. It shows us a lot about the brand. And there's so many times I can tell you that the management or owners of the company, president, founder, whoever, there's we also look at what their top 10 is in relationship to the top 15 and the stakeholders, and show them where there's connection and disconnect. And we've uncovered some huge disconnection, points of disconnection that changed everything, for the company. And I write about that in a book for, one of the biggest things is a lot of people think they're community minded, and they'll put that community oriented, put that at number 1. And you have three stakeholders that are saying, oh yeah, one has it at 1, another one has it at 2, another one has it at 1. It doesn't even make the top 15, because that's what their perception is. And unfortunately, so many companies are, kind of defining who they are based on the stakeholders' opinion of, whatever their mission statement is, or whatever they feel like they are. And it's not truly who they are. So I think it's important to always start with something I like the impression analysis. I didn't invent the impression analysis, but I love it because it shows you in who you are and the reputation you've earned. And, that part is the starting point for our process. And it does reveal the characteristics of the brand. We've never had it in 13 years, hundreds of assessments. I've never had somebody say that's not us, not one time. And you cannot argue with it. So it starts with that. And then the second part is a survey that the stakeholders take. Now, at that point, if they have pages and pages and pages of notes, we're looking for the statements that kind of illustrate how they're earning those attributes, right? So we pull out statements through their survey, 22 questions, they each get them. So if I have 2 stakeholders, 3 or 4, I'm pulling out quotes, and then I'm looking for patterns once I have those quotes pulled out. And when we have that, result will be a summary that will basically tell you who the brand is, and it will represent their attitude. It will represent the habit systems and processes that matter most. And it'll represent the direction that people can expect to go with the experience with that brand. So that's what that brand story summary is. And that becomes the benchmark for our content. So and the beauty of doing it that way is when you get up and you ask team members to participate, or you have a film that asks team members to participate, you can illustrate to them and say, hey, this isn't a marketing company that created this. This isn't something that came from your owners. This is the reputation you've earned. This is how people saw you. This is how we're gonna basically clarify it. And then here's the plan to celebrate it. So that's how it works.
I think it's really fascinating. I love the systematic approach, but it just reminds me so much of some of the work that we do, internally in the businesses. There's so much talk right now of trying to be, authentic, and it reminds me of what I would call the realistic job preview approach, which is where instead of trying to hire a candidate and quote sell them on a job, try to like, hey, this is the best company ever. Everything's wonderful. Yeah, we're super community minded. Blah, blah, blah. You're actually trying to convince them about some of the challenges that they will face and see if that's something that they're okay with. And my entire approach with that is, listen, this isn't sunshine and puppy dogs and rainbows every single day, but it's super rewarding. And here's why, and here's what it's like to work here. And my experience with that is I worked for an organization, who shall remain nameless, that, it was all about the marketing. It was all about like, here's a flashy job title. It's going to be super cool. Look at all the cool stuff that you get here, it was very marketing focused. But then we would see 40% turnover in the first year because people would get it and then they'd be like, this isn't what you told me. This sucks. I have to work these crazy hours and this hard sometimes. Like, you told me this was going to be great and I was going to be, a manager of a senior manager in like a year, and that's not going to happen. It's just like, I've seen that enough that it's like, yeah, it's got to be authentic, or you will eventually, you're going to pay the price one way or another. You might hire more people.
Pay the price on both ends too, because nobody wants to work at a company that has people leaving and talking shit about the fact that they were lied to on the culture, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make the people that are staying there like, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? It's not what because people are going to get into your culture. They're going to make connections, and that's only going to infect your culture. And then eventually, not only is your recruiting, you're doing that to recruit more people, but now your retention suffers because now your people that are there are like, what the hell am I doing still here? This place does suck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's, you got to be who you are. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I really like, what you said reminded me, the best part of my book, I really love the idea that, people talk about telling stories and telling people, it's telling to sell is really the poison in in the marketing industry, in the corporate industry, it's doing exactly what you're talking about, finding the right way to phrase things, getting training on say this to get people to do that. All this training around conversions and selling people. So what I say is don't tell to sell. That's not the opportunity. The opportunity is to celebrate a story, to educate. So celebrate to educate rather than tell to sell. And when you celebrate who you are and what the experience is like and who your team members are, and you celebrate the culture and what it truly is, you are going to educate the people who matter most. And those people are going to make connections, and that connection is going to be real because you're not fucking lying to them. Sorry, I cursed. and nobody wants to be lied to. Nobody wants to be recruited that way, and they sure as hell don't want that to once they're there start figuring out what's true and what's not. So just celebrate who you truly are to educate the right people, and you will be successful with recruiting and retention. Right? You can only get better because the honesty wins, trust wins. And when you're real and people know that, they can take pride in that. They'll come there because they respond to that and they want to be a part of it. And when they want to be a part of it, then the snowball, everything builds. So that's the key, man. It's understanding who you are from the start, taking pride in it, owning it, and celebrating it. And that's the key.
Absolutely. And then here's the whole circle, right? And then we go all the way back around to the coin where everybody usually starts in the marketing and the product and the customer. If your employees are all aligned and they're rowing the same direction and loving it and it's working, you're going to have your customers taken care of too. And ultimately it's just a big friendly cycle, right? It works.
Because your employees now become influencers because they're jazzed about it. They're talking about people. They're reinforcing those things. You're doing it on your marketing company. Just say, hey, just shine a light on the people that are celebrating the company. Just shine a light on us executing on the promises that we're proud of. And when you're doing that, it just not only does it happen online, that it happens with your people. You get people who work for you that are bringing in and their friends, telling their friends and recruiting for you that way. When you do a referral program, it means something because it's now not just, hey, go out and sell somebody on this place. It's like, hey, tell them we want them to know what you think is special about this place. What we're celebrating. Then go out and do it, and we're going to reward you. So anyway, it's pretty awesome.
Absolutely, I love it. It makes so much sense, and I think what's exciting about it is this isn't just a marketing project. Like this is a full holistic approach to an entire marketing strategy. That starts with employees and engagement and influencers and celebration of some of the great things that an organization does. So I love the approach. With that being said, we could keep talking for another hour, I'm sure, but we are quickly coming to the end of our time together. So I want to shift gears. We're going to go into the Rebel HR Flash Round. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Question number 1. What is your favorite people book?
I really liked Epic Content Marketing. Was a game changer for me because it was something that really allowed me to look at marketing not just as a way of selling people. It was someone who kind of believed what I believed, and I identified, and it really taught me a lot about people and communicating. And so for me, and I guess there's going to be a new one coming out, a new version. I mean, I think that's like 10 years old, but new one coming out next year. So I'm pretty excited about it. Joe Polizzi wrote that, and I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. All right, check it out. Anybody in recruitment marketing, if you haven't, great marketing book recommendation. Question number 2: who should we be listening to?
That's a great question. I think you got to listen to as many perspectives as possible. One of the best tools that I've ever found is the Blinkist app. I get on that thing. I don't know if you have that or not, but it enables you to listen to dozens and dozens and dozens of people and learn about their 10 things, 10 blinks of 10 chapters, and go through books in 15 minutes. So that I think listening for me, it enables me to hear so many different points. And then when I want to learn something more on the book, I'll download the audiobook, or I'll go buy the book and read it. But if I would give a recommendation on what people should be listening to, I'd say that app, and making notes. I've got my team on it. I mean, it's a great tool.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not sponsored by Blinkist, but I think Blinkist is listening. I will say, for someone like me who's like, I'm like borderline ADHD, and like I'm always like chasing squirrels. It's just short enough for me to stay focused and attentive enough, and also helps me understand. Okay, do I really want to invest a lot of hours into reading this full book, or do I just want the Cliff Notes version? Right. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not. I mean, my book is not on Blinkist. I had it on. I mean, I don't know what the process is, so I should be anti-Blinkist. But it's so good that I do love it. And to your point, it's the attention span, and it's really like, okay, something's got to grab you to spend the time to go through a whole book. And if I listen to something, go, oh man, I find myself stopping or writing down notes, and makes you think. It's just a great tool for people in any in any capacity you can get. And also, last thing I'll say about it is, because things are crossing over now, it's not just marketing. I love what you said. It's marketing for, it's content in the book that I said. I mean, I know this is HR, but things are crossing over. HR needs to know about marketing. HR, needs to know about, culture development. There's so many different things. So just reading books that are just for your industry, that's not going to do it now. So you just get things where they kind of bleed over, and you can take a look and really become an expert and help this that knowledge base just grow. So to me, it's a good way, because if you can't read every book out there, and when it comes to the disciplines that really are prominent in your field. So
100%. I think that's really well put. It's interesting. Back, I don't know, when quarantine hit and COVID was going on crazy and stuff, I kind of made an intentional decision to get outside of HR, because I was I was dealing with stuff that was way outside of my normal comfort zone, and I got really, I actually went back to like learning about accounting and investing, because I just knew, as we were working through some of the pandemic stuff, I realized, wow, I need to sharpen the axe a little bit on some of the stuff that I know here, because there are really big decisions being made based on these items. I better know what the heck I'm looking at and why these decisions are being made. And, it's stuff like that that's been one of the more powerful things that I've experienced here as far as my own self-development. So I agree 100%. You got to get outside of your comfort zone a little bit. So,
well, it's exciting time to be. It's exciting time to be in HR, because you guys are doing so much more with the organizations these days, man. It's awesome.
It's a far cry from being the guy outside giving out parking tickets for my permanent parking passes. But that is a literal story that legitimately happened early in my career. So, all right, last question: how could our listeners connect with you and learn more?
I'm on LinkedIn. Kelly Keenan SR is is on there. I'm on Twitter. You can Kelly at Brand Story Experts. You want to send me an email, or that's my company, Brand Story Experts. So I'm available. So you can get in touch with me any of those ways, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Likewise. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. The book, again, check it out. Everyone is an influencer, building a brand by engaging the people who matter most. Kelly, it's been a wonderful conversation. Really appreciate the energy and the work and sharing some of your expertise with us today.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Thanks.
All right. That does it for the Rebel HR podcast. Big thank you to our guests. Follow us on Facebook at Rebel HR Podcast, Twitter at Rebel HR Guy, or see our website at rebelhumanresources.com. The views and opinions expressed by Rebel HR Podcast are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any of the organizations that we represent. No animals were harmed during the filming of this podcast.
Baby.